Hi, Stephen. I am currently logged into one of my Blackboard courses, so hopefully I can walk you through creating a Turnitin.com assignment. So once you're in your course, you basically just have to decide where you want the assignment to be located, where you want students to go in order to access that submission link. And I guess maybe one other thing to make sure of beforehand is that Turnitin.com assignments are actually acceptable, or that your Blackboard account has that as an option. So to check that, if you go to Customization and go to Tool Availability, it's got a whole bunch of things listed and they're in alphabetical order. So just go down to Turnitin Assignment and make sure that it's actually turned in. The Turnitin assignment has a check on the far right. So you just make sure that's checked, and if it's not, put a check mark there and then hit submit at the bottom. And then once that's activated, you can add it anywhere, like I said. So I have in this class, this is my online class, and so everything is done through a weekly activity except for the major assignments. So I am going to go to week 1 just so that students don't accidentally find it right now. And in order to add it, you're going to go under Tools, and I take that back. It's under Assessments, and it's under Turnitin Assignment. And it's going to kind of walk you through the setup for it. So because Blackboard is making a connection to Turnitin, it takes a little longer than normal to load. And then what you're going to do is you're going to select Paper Assignment and then hit the Next button. Come on. And then it comes to this page that says New Assignment. You're going to give it a title. I'm just going to call it Trial. And then point value. If you want it to appear in the Turnitin grade book, then you want to put a point value here. If you don't want it to appear with points, you don't have to put it there. And then the default is that it will allow file types that Turnitin can check, so that's what I always use. And then you have to put in a start date and then a due date. So I'm just going to make this quick, like tomorrow. And then a post date. The post date is when the content that's submitted will actually be available in the Turnitin.com database. So not just to you and your students, but really beyond that. So I usually make it the day after the due date, and you can change the hours and so on for all of these. And then under optional settings, it gives you an opportunity for special instructions. For example, this is where I tell students that they can resubmit up until the due date, and if they want me, if it's available and accessible to me to grade before the due date, I ask them in this box to send me an email message so I know it's actually ready. You can choose to either allow or not allow submissions after the due date. I usually do, but there's a penalty for turning things in late, and that's kind of outside of Turnitin.com. You can either have it contribute the content to the similarity report or the big database or not. And then when do you want the similarity report to occur? So I always do immediately. And if you do that, the first submission gets generated, or the report gets generated almost right away. The second and any subsequent ones take 24 hours because Turnitin doesn't want to bog its own database down with submissions. So it's kind of not really a penalty, but to make its servers work a little bit less hard. You can have it exclude bibliographic materials. I usually tell it to do that, otherwise it comes up flagged anyway. Exclude quoted materials. I actually say no usually because it's going to flag whatever is quoted, and if the student has included a quote but hasn't appropriately cited that material, I can see that and they can see that, so it's usually kind of good to put no on that. I do exclude small sources, and you can choose the number of words that match, and I just keep the default, which is 7. Then do you want students to see the similarity reports? And you can kind of, I don't actually have it grade anything in Blackboard, so I keep that the same. And then, let's see, I don't change any of that. So another nice feature is this grammar checking through eRater. I enable that, which is the default, and students will automatically get to see the grammar checker. And then I don't change anything here, and it does allow you to save those options as your default if you want to, and then you just hit submit. You get a little message saying that it was successfully added. You can click OK. And then in the location where you told the link to appear, it's there, and so the students will just click view/complete, and it will walk them through the submission process. If your students turn anything in through Blackboard, it's kind of similar, but it has this Turnitin logo at the top, so that part is a little different. It does ask them to type in a first and last name and some kind of title, and then they're going to go through and they can either choose a document from the computer, they can choose something from Dropbox, or they can actually choose something from Google Drive, which is kind of nice. And I don't think it's going to actually work quite right for me simply because I'm logged in as an instructor right now, but let me just go get something. I know you can't see all of this, but I just want you to see what happens when you submit it. So it takes a little time depending on, oh, I didn't do what I told you to do, so it just needs to have something in those fields. So let me try it again. It does know that it's coming from a specific student because they're logged into their account. So this just puts whatever name they typed in here and whatever title they typed in here, and it's in the process. So once something is uploaded, it gives you just a little bit of an overview of it. The student will see a preview, and if it's the right thing, they can hit confirm. If it's not, they can cancel and try again. So I'm actually going to, well, I'll confirm. And then it's basically set, it's done. If they go into the gradebook area, they would see an exclamation point indicating that it's turned into you, but you haven't graded it yet. And then what they can do is they can go back to wherever they were to submit. And if they re-click that link, it will actually bring up the Turnitin.com report. So that's all they have to do to actually see the report. And I'm going to go to the gradebook because that will be a better indication of what you're going to see. Actually, I have one that's loaded right now. So if I click on the student's name, it comes up where I can either see the original paper or the originality report, which is what Turnitin.com generates. So I'm going to click that. And this is what the student sees. This is the same report. And I'm going to try to make this a little bit wider. It won't let me make the viewing window wider, but what I wanted to show you is over here on the right. Again, this is what the student sees as well. So there's a couple of different tools that are available. The red one is actually the plagiarism document. So if you click on that, or if the students click on that, then in the document itself, whatever, it shows you what percent matches, and it will actually give you a list of the sources that were used. And so I go through and I look at the document and see what's selected, and it matches the material that's over here on the right. It's color-coded by that or numbered so that you can see what it is. So when students say what percent is acceptable, my response is always it's not really the percent, but it's what is flagged. And so you can look through, and this was a lesson plan, so there's not a lot of actual narrative, but there is very little. I can also come over here on the right and I can click on any one of these documents and it shows me what's selected. So here the student has standards listed, which are automatically going to be flagged. The other kind of notable thing is this ETS button, because that brings up the grammar checker. And that's kind of interesting as well, so it's still loading. So it goes through and it has some information about different types of common errors. And in the document itself, it has potential article error, and they may or may not be actual errors, but like subject-verb agreement and different things that sometimes are useful to the students. So you can see different things here, you can see different things with regard to mechanics. So I don't actually use that myself in grading anything, but I think it's helpful to a lot of students, especially students for whom English is not their first language. So again, that's available in their own Turnitin.com report as well. And then the other useful button is this one right here, because that gives you the option to download either the current view, which has the Turnitin markup or the PaperRater markup in it, or you can download the originally submitted file, which is what I usually grade from, because I find all of these other notations a little distracting when I'm actually grading. So I think that's pretty much it. If you want to give it a try and you run into questions, just send me an email or we can set up a time to talk and I'll try to help you out more and have you work through it. But it's a really useful tool, and students actually give me really positive feedback about having it incorporated into class because they get to learn from it as well. So it also just makes students aware that I know there are places online where they can get information, and that awareness alone prevents some of them from plagiarizing, so I think that's a good thing.